Live from Washington, D.C., Jay Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow.
It's a fraud committed on the American people, and that was the whole situation with President Obama's administration hiding intelligence on Iranian militants in Syria. And how they got there was utilizing Iran Air, which the United States government lifted sanctions on. They lifted sanctions on Iran Air, and Iran Air starts running militant jihadists to prop up the regime of Bashar al-Assad. Now, this all comes at an interesting time. It's been completely exposed now. Photographs provided to Congress show Iran using Iran Air to take jihadist soldiers, even this year, by the way, as recently as this year, in part when the Obama administration removed sanctions on Iran Air and promoted a multi-billion-dollar sales between Iran Air and aircraft manufacturer Boeing, which is seeking to provide Iran Air with an updated fleet. Now, this behavior violates international law, no question about it. We're going to get into that. But the Obama administration lifted sanctions against Iran Air as a political concession during the Iranian nuclear talks. Now, they're now utilizing Iran Air as a vehicle to convey, to transport militants into Syria and to destabilize the region. Now, having said all of that, that comes on the heels of our case against the State Department exposing the whole false narrative on the Iran deal, where the federal government took the position, and at least got the narrative out there, that with the election of the so-called moderate Rouhani, the president, that this was a time to negotiate a deal. However, James Rosen from Fox News was able to establish that, in fact, video had been edited that took out the timeline, the date of when the negotiations actually started with Iran. And guess what? It predates Rouhani. It was during Ahmadinejad, who they deemed to be the more radical of the two. Having said all of that, it was all a pretext to lift the sanctions, that this was somehow going to establish world peace. Yeah, really? What they did was start ferrying, again, militants, jihadists, into Syria. So this tells you the whole narrative was incorrect. Now, we went to federal court on that and actually have email exchanges on this. I'm going to get into that when we come back from the break. But in the beginning, the State Department said, when we found the video that James Rosen produced, Logan, the State Department said, oh, it was a technical glitch. We now know unequivocally, folks, that that is a false narrative, and we know something else.
I mean, we always knew it was. I mean, I think that's one of the things. If you've edited a video on your iPhone, you knew this was something that had to have been intentional. This could not have been something that just randomly occurred, unless your computer is possessed. I think that'd be the only way for it to actually just happen. So, you couldn't have done that. So again, I know you guys have a lot to say about it, but I'm curious what the facts are, what we learned, but you can call us 1-800-684-3110.
Yeah, we want to know your reaction to all this at 1-800-684-3110. And then part of we did get emails that explain some of this. So in our FOIA litigation, we'll go over that litigation in a moment. But one of the documents, ready for this? They claimed presidential communication privilege, which is a privilege of the executive. Obviously, our litigation that now spans a year and a half by activities that took place in 2013 and 14 are having an impact in 2017. So we want you to stay engaged on this, and we need to demand the truth. Now Congress is willing to reinvestigate on this. Treasury may, in fact, impose sanctions. Sign our petition on this right now, ACLJ.org. That's ACLJ.org to sign that petition, or 1-877-989-2255. Again, signing that petition to get to the truth of what was going on here with this Iran deal. 877-989-2255 or ACLJ.org.
It's an unprecedented bureaucratic coup undermining our security. The Obama administration took action to empower the entrenched bureaucracy to subvert our national security right before leaving office. It has led to dangerous leaks, criminal violations of the Espionage Act, and the creation of a shadow government to sabotage the new administration. This dramatically endangers our national security and has led to dangerous classified leaks, At the ACLJ, we're fighting back. We're filing legal demands of the bureaucracy to expose the actions of the corrupt Obama administration, stop the soft coup and the rampant leak of classified information, and protect our national security. Add your name to our new petition to stop the shadow government and protect our national security. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or you can add your name online, aclj.org.
So we have a case called ACLJ, American Center for Law and Justice versus the Department of the State. It is seeking records regarding the doctoring of the Iran deal press briefing video. Let me play for you what James Rosen said on that. It's number 26. This is with Jen Psaki. Let's take a listen.
James, I have no new information for you today on the timing of when there were any discussions with any Iranian officials.
Let me try it one last way,
Okay.
Jen, and I appreciate your indulgence.
Sure.
Is it the policy of the State Department where the preservation of the secrecy of secret negotiations is concerned to lie in order to achieve that goal?
James, I think there are times where diplomacy needs privacy in order to progress. This is a good example of that.
All right, so let's go now to, let me tell you exactly what this is. So we were trying to figure out what happened with this video editing that was taking place. They were hiding something. Well, now we know what it was. It was the start date of the negotiations. They actually took place, unlike the narrative that they were trying to create, it actually took place under Ahmadinejad, who was the more radical, if you could say that, between Rouhani. They were trying to say, well, Rouhani's in, he's more moderate. That's why they started negotiating. That was false. It was completely false. We had in our FOIA requests in our litigation that we started with the State Department on May 12, 2016. The lawsuit was, FOIA was filed on May 12, 2016. Lawsuit was filed on June 28, 2016. Document production, State made 5 productions totaling 745 pages of documentation, one in which included a presidential communication privilege. I'll get to that a little bit later. But the one we did get, we got a sensitive but unclassified document. It's a sensitive document. Department of State's review of December 2nd, 2013 daily press briefing. In it, it acknowledges that a technician from the Public Affairs Office recalled having received a request to edit the video over the phone from a female caller from elsewhere in public affairs who could credibly assert that an edit should be made. The technician did not recall the identity of the caller. The technician did not recall the reason being given for the edit request, but did believe that the requester had mentioned in the course of the call a Fox network reporter and Iran. Now we know that Iran, under the sanction relief, Andy Economo, was getting access to move their militants back and forth.
That's correct. And not only that, Jay, but what I find particularly egregious and awful is that John Kerry, the elitist liberal Democrat Secretary of State under Obama, was traveling around the world to promote trade with Iranian companies, including Iran Air. At the same time, Iran was sending these militants into Syria, and the whole goal here was to preserve the nuclear deal. Do whatever is necessary to get this nuclear deal through.
Okay, I'm going to go to Harry Hutchison, our Director of Governmental Affairs, and I've got a question for Than Bennett, but let me go to you first, Harry, and that is, what's the narrative reason here? Why were they doing this? What was President Obama thinking?
Well, essentially, President Obama was engaged in collusion to hide something very, very important. In other words, his collusion with the Iranian government, and he wanted to deceive the American people. So essentially, if we think about this, the Obama administration was negotiating with an Iranian radical.
Right.
Keep in mind, Iran is the leading state sponsor of terror in the world.
Right.
They wanted to ferry militants to Syria. So let's keep all of this hidden. So this is all part of a pre-arranged, premeditated plan and process to deceive the American people. And up till now, President Obama has succeeded in his deception.
Well, this is why we're going into this information, folks, and that's the reason we're in federal court. Let me go to Than Bennett, our Director of Governmental Affairs in Washington, D.C., because Than, Congressman DeSantis, Congressman Roskam have all talked about this. There's a request for, it may be ongoing hearings right now. We, of course, have been successful in federal court. This is another one where we got information, folks. Sometimes you don't. This time we did.
Yeah, no doubt about it. There's also a letter going to the Department of Treasury with the photographic evidence that you've been talking about, Jay. I mean, it's so compelling. You've got the photos of these jihadis literally flying coach, and then you've got pictures of them in the battlefield engaging in jihad against their enemy. I would just say this, though, and I want to underscore something that Harry said. The Obama administration, Jay, was not tricked into this, and we know this for a fact because of our case, and we also know it because you can compare what we got against the backdrop of what Ben Rhodes did. Ben Rhodes not only admitted, Jay, he bragged about the fact that they lied to the American people to make sure that this deal went through. They were not tricked into this. They knew that it was a fraudulent deal from the beginning, and they went through with it anyway.
Let me hold up for our audience that's watching on Facebook and Periscope, our TV, our networks. I'm holding to you the federal lawsuit. This is what we filed. And then we've got about 745 pages of response. One of those responses, Andy, has in it an assertion of a presidential communication privilege. And what's interesting to me about that is, of course, those privileges do exist, and there's reasons for them to exist. I don't deny it, but it was all related to the timing. This was December 4th of 2013. And this was on the issue, again, of people trying to figure out what exactly was going on here. But for the White House to assert the privilege, which they have the right to do, I certainly don't question privileges. The fact is, what's interesting here is one document contains a redaction pursuant to presidential communication privilege. The email is an exchange between State Department officials and the National Security Council's officials regarding a reporter's inquiry regarding state officials' secret meeting with Iran officials. So this whole matter at this point, there was a narrative out there. It just, none of the facts supported the narrative of what the president was putting forward.
No, and in fact, the president knew about it. I mean, if you're asserting presidential privilege, that means you had communications with the president. I mean, how else could you assert the privilege? So obviously the president was aware of what was going on at the time it was going on. And you can't, and that's undeniable. But he was so determined to get this nuclear deal with Iran through that he was willing to sacrifice and do anything, including lying to the American people, which is what he did.
We have a lot of calls coming in, a lot of comments coming in on Facebook and Periscope, a lot of people watching on Facebook and Periscope. Our radio audience is responding as well. So we're kind of firing on all cylinders here. Let's go ahead and start taking some calls and comments.
Let's go to Scott in Colorado on line 1. You're on the air.
Hi, Scott. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Hey, great, guys. Thanks for my call. Thanks, Jay and Than, all your work. My question is this. You know, apart from the seeming affections that President Obama had towards Islam, as many have noted, that's not a new observation. Yeah. Was another motive to rearrange the balance of power in that area, ultimately to maybe take down Israel and even rearrange our alliance with Saudi Arabia?
Well, he certainly doesn't. You know, President Obama was no fan of Benjamin Netanyahu. We know that for a fact. But Scott brings up a really great question, Harry.
Absolutely, and I think he's absolutely correct. President Obama was committed to destabilizing pre-existing arrangements in the Middle East. In other words, we, for a long time, had a strong relationship with Israel. We were a strong supporter of Israel. President Obama wanted to shift American support to the Muslim communities, particularly the Iranian communities. And so he engaged in deliberate misconduct, in my opinion. If you look at the video, if you look at the State Department response to our request, they admit that the video was deliberately edited, yet they cannot reach a conclusion as to why. Yeah. It was edited on purpose in order to deceive and conceal information from the American people. And also, the Obama administration was committed to deceiving the American people about its shifting American support toward Iran, favoring Iran, disfavoring Israel, and disfavoring Sunni Arab countries.
Yeah, so let me ask you, and this takes next step. This is why these lawsuits are relevant now. Because right now, today, as a fallout from all of this, Andy, we have these militants utilizing, it's like Iran Air is the national air carrier, civilian air carrier of the Iranian army.
Jay, as you know,
jihadists, actually.
Jay, as you know, it's against international agreements and violates them and our commitments to commitments that we have with respect to international relations, that you don't use commercial airlines for the purposes of ferrying military personnel across the world and to engage in anything.
And this isn't like your standing army. This is your military jihadists.
I mean, these were people who were trained to do what? Terroristic activities.
Right.
And you're using a commercial airlines, like using Egypt Air, like using Air France. Think about that.
Yep.
Like using American Airlines. To do this. These are national carriers that are being used to take terrorists to fight.
So, Than, the important part here is what we've uncovered in our lawsuit. And people say, was it relevant today? The jihadi travel is going on right now. And that's as a result of what happened in 2013, 14, 15, and 16. And our lawsuit is the reason why we're finding all this out.
Look, it's bad enough that Iran is doing this, Jay, but they did it with the knowledge of the United States, and it's very possible that officials within the United States government that knew about that are still working there. Remember, the result of our lawsuit said that someone was negligent. Jay, was everybody that was negligent fired? We have no evidence that they were. That's one of the things that we want.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
You got a comment you can maybe answer. We had to break. Jan says his plan has been exposed. So what happens now?
Well, again, this is exactly what we're going to get into in the next segment of the broadcast. So now we are starting to be able to piece this together. What do? You have to undo the policies so this doesn't continue. We'll talk about how that's done. We're going to talk about also what we're uncovering here. This is deep, and why we're going to go back into federal court on this, folks. We've got a lot more ahead on this. Obviously, our litigation that now spans a year and a half by activities that took place in 2013 and 14 are having an impact in 2017. So we want you to stay engaged on this, and we need to demand the truth. Now Congress is willing to reinvestigate on this. Treasury may, in fact, impose sanctions. Sign our petition on this right now, ACLJ.org. That's ACLJ.org to sign that petition, or 1-877-989-2255. Again, signing that petition to get to the truth of what was going on here with this Iran deal. 877-989-2255 or ACLJ.org.
It's an unprecedented bureaucratic coup undermining our security. The Obama administration took action to empower the entrenched bureaucracy to subvert our national security right before leaving office. It has led to dangerous leaks, criminal violations of the Espionage Act, and the creation of a shadow government to sabotage the new administration. This dramatically endangers our national security and has led to dangerous classified leaks. At the ACLJ, we're fighting back. We're filing legal demands of the bureaucracy to expose the actions of the corrupt Obama administration, stop the soft coup and the rampant leak of classified information, and protect our national security. Add your name to our new petition to stop the shadow government and protect our national security. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or you can add your name online, aclj.org.
So a lot of you are asking us the question. We filed the lawsuit. As I said, I got the federal lawsuit here. We got a response. The response included documents that are sensitive but now unclassified. This document shows that the State Department intentionally edited the video to determine when, in fact, these negotiations with the Iranians held. So this litigation was filed last year. We started getting the responses. But now, why is it relevant to right now? Because right now, Iran Air, who was taken off the sanctions list, they are now utilizing their sources, their air carrier, to get individuals from Iran, jihadists, warriors, terrorists, into Syria, and who knows where else. Also, at the same time, Hamas said on Monday that they have repaired relations with Iran after several years of strain and will use restored military and financial aid to face down hostilities with Israel. So you look at this, and I was asking Professor Hutchison, our director of policy, but before the break here, we were in our break with Facebook and Periscope, why all this is happening. And my question is, what is the impact on Israel?
Well, the impact, I think, is very, very clear. In essence, the United States has unleashed the floodgates of funding for Hamas. That is part and parcel of this process. So in other words, the Iran nuclear deal serves to legitimate Hamas a recognized terrorist organization and an opponent, an existential threat to Israel.
And they also, Andy, take the State Department takes Iran Air off of the sanctions list.
That's important, Jay. That's very important, because what they do is they take them off the sanctions list and promote deals with, and let's say it's true, Boeing aircraft.
Yeah.
In order for them to be able to enter into more engagements with Boeing to buy aircraft. To do what? To act as military transport planes.
Yeah. To destabilize the region that's already destabilized.
Exactly correct. It's already precarious.
So litigation that started last year on events that started 3 years ago in our previous administration become very relevant, because then now you got to go back in and fix this. And that includes going, as you said, we got to go deep.
Absolutely. Well, look, two things I would say. First of all, this letter that Congress wrote to the Treasury Department says, and this is an Obama official talking, that even under the deal, as weak as it was, the United States maintains the ability to designate or redesignate any Iranian airline that engages in sanctionable activity. Jay, we now have photographic evidence of that. So that's number one. But number two, all of the people involved with this, Jay, they need to never touch another foreign negotiation. Yes. And you know what? We need to find out those names, because unless we do, they will touch another one.
All right, we're going to go back and take some comments and calls. Logan, you want to take a comment or a call?
Let's take a call. We've had Rod, who's been on hold for a while in Indianapolis. You're on the air.
Hey, Rod, go ahead.
Hey, Jay. I just wanted to call in and find out a couple things. I mean, from what you're doing a great job.
Thanks.
And I see where you're pulling all this stuff out. You know, we keep hearing this stuff, but I'm not seeing nobody go to jail, go to prison. All we keep hearing is how all this stuff is going down. Then they follow up by coming back on our president and trying to lead us away from this stuff.
Yeah, well, let me tell you this, though, Rod. I mean, I said this I think last week. You talk about results. I mean, look what happened in the IRS cases. Yeah, right. No one's in jail. But the IRS of 2013 is not the IRS of 2017. Okay? They're not able to do what they used to do. They're not able to target like they used to target. Lois Lerner's not heading the tax-exempt organization. Yes, she pleaded the fifth. She had the right to do that. She pled the fifth. But let me tell you something. The litigation and the activities have real consequences. It's not always resulting in jail. I mean, and people are looking at this idea that it results in criminality. Most of the time, it's policy changes. And, Harry, those policy changes can be very significant. And we've uncovered a lot here between our FOIA litigation, the documents that we've received, articles that are coming out. We've been able to put together as Stan just said, a very compelling case. But it's not just jail. It's changing the nature of the policy. That's more important than any of this.
Absolutely. And so one policy change that we should encourage is the placement of sanctions on Iran Air, and also increasing the level of sanctions on the Iranian government, designed to deter additional support for terrorist organizations and destabilization in the Middle East.
All right. Logan, you want to take a phone call or a comment?
Let's go to Nancy. California, you're on the air.
Hi, Nancy. Go ahead.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hi. Hey, I'm just wondering, so, like, Jason Chaffetz talked yesterday about the whole thing with Sessions and how he told him directly that he cannot and will not loosen things up. What can we, the people, do to make this happen? Because, like, nothing seems to be going forward.
Well, things are going. That's what I'm trying to reiterate. Things are going forward. I mean, we've seen a complete agency turnaround at the IRS, very significantly. And then I think but Nancy brings a good question. The question is, now we've got the data. But look, it takes time to get the data. Now you make the moves. Let's lay out for the folks exactly what we're doing in Washington on this, literally right now as we speak. We're talking about this. But again, it doesn't mean people are going to be indicted. It doesn't mean jail. It's policy changes. It's personnel changes. Go ahead, Than.
It's also going to take some time, Jay. People have to be willing to persist in this fight with us, because it's going to take going to court again and again and again, and also going to policymakers and insisting that they make changes. Look, let me say it this way. Lois Lerner being gone is a huge win. James Comey being gone is a huge win.
Right.
But guess who is still in place? Legions of people that answer to those two individuals, and also at the State Department with this situation. Jay, we have to persist until the turnaround has reached all of those mid-tier levels. And I've got to tell you, our people are going to have to stick with us, because we're going to have to go back to court numerous times. It's not one win, it's many wins that accomplish that.
Well, Andy, we were on the phone right before we went on air, and we're talking about the next piece of litigation on this.
That's right, and we intend to follow up on this now that we have additional information with respect to the negotiations between Iran Air and Boeing, the lifting of the sanctions that now facilitated those negotiations of using commercial airliners for military purposes. One step leads to another, Jay. You open one door and you open another window, and you follow the line of reasoning and where it needs to go, and that's exactly what we do at the ACLJ.
Yeah, and folks, we're able to do this on the outside. I mean, and this is why organizations like yours make a huge difference.
This is a question that comes up a lot. A lot of people are asking, and it came up a year ago, 2 years ago. We talked about this, which is why would the president, that time President Obama, want to work with a nation like Iran? What was the benefits?
They had, my view is, I'll let Harry address it too, though. My view was that the president wanted to remake the world in his image, and he thought that by bringing Iran into the world of nations as a legitimate player, that somehow this would be, we would stabilize the region. It's done exactly the opposite in my view. But Harry, what is your view on this?
Well, I would add Russia to the equation as well. Initially, I believe President Obama thought he could reach Russia through Iran. And if you think about it, he has reached Russia through Iran in terms of this Iranian nuclear deal, because the Iranians have purchased billions of dollars of military supplies through Russia. It hasn't worked out perfectly, even according to the Obama scenario. But one of the great things about President Obama is that he was gifted with lots of illusions. And his worldview ultimately will and should collapse.
That's going to do it for the broadcast today. Let me encourage you to sign on. And we've got a petition up on this. We've got a lot of action happening, as you've seen. So I want to encourage you to go to aclj.org or call us at 1-877-989-2255. So 877-989-2255 or aclj.org to add your name to this petition demanding the truth on what happened during this whole transaction during the Obama administration. It's now having impact on 2017. We encourage you to do that again. aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. We'll talk to you next week.
It's an unprecedented bureaucratic coup undermining our security. The Obama administration took action to empower the entrenched bureaucracy to subvert our national security right before leaving office. It has led to dangerous leaks, criminal violations of the Espionage Act, and the creation of a shadow government to sabotage the new administration. This dramatically endangers our national security and has led to dangerous classified leaks. At the ACLJ, we're fighting back. We're filing legal demands of the bureaucracy to expose the actions of the corrupt Obama administration, stop the soft coup and the rampant leak of classified information, and protect our national security. Add your name to our new petition to stop the shadow government and protect our national security. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or you can add your name online, aclj.org.